Hello and welcome to Dubai Trains, and today we're going to get this street scene painted and looking nice like this. In the previous video I created the street scene and built it up out of various parts and components. So as you see here, I got all these components separated out because we have 4 piles, because I wanted to paint it in 4 different colors to represent 4 different materials. So the first layer I want to do is to basically prime and coat everything, and for the cobblestones I'm going to go for this paprika red. And then for all the concrete material, I got one of these. Now this is a tip that I saw on the What's Neat show. Someone was spraying with this textured spray can, and I want to try it because the colors I think is more or less spot on, and it's a mixed color. And again, this is just a primer because after that it's definitely going to need some kind of wash. This is far too bright. And then for the sidewalks, I'm going to go for a different type of concrete color. I think that should be a little bit more grayish. So I have just a H gray, chalk gray. I also have a non-chalk version of this. It's all more or less the same. I didn't really see a lot of differences. So that's that. That's also obviously going to be weathered later. And then for the asphalt, I think the prime layer should be some kind of gray, darkish gray like this. So I'm going to spray everything with this gray color. And then I'm going to add a lot of accents, because asphalt, if you look up close, is not a homogeneous color. It's not only gray. There's also specks of blue. This is the blue I had left. I didn't buy it especially for this project. So I'm just going to see how this works out. And then also some lighter specks. So I'm going to use this for the asphalt. And as I said, this is just the base coat. So let me start spraying. So as you see here with the cobblestones and the other concrete color, I'm only going to do one coat. So I'm just going to spray it unevenly, get all the sides, get the top, and get everything that I want. Then here for the asphalt, like I said, I'm first going to do the heavy coat of gray. And then I'm going to, from a larger distance, mist on very carefully, a bit randomly, the other accent color. So the lighter green color and the darker blue color. And then I finish everything off with this matte coat because it was a bit too shiny for my taste. And then it was time for the textured paint spray can. And holy cow, there is a lot of pressure behind that paint. So these parts, I thought they would be heavy enough. I had to take them all down, and even the bigger parts were just blowing all over the place. And I found the best method to be like a all guns blazing approach from a distance. So here we are after painting, and everything is put back into place, and it already looks so much better. And this is just the prime initial color. So first we need to talk about this bazooka spray can. Wow, what a texture, what a power comes out of that spray can. Just look at that. And it actually causes a problem as well, because the sides are so rough, the track doesn't align, the pieces don't align with the track anymore. So I had to file all this down to make it smooth again. And also the concrete tiles that I grooved in previous video totally disappeared, so I had to groove those in again. Now the concrete came out good as well. I mean, again, this needs a wash just so we can get all these details out of it. Now we need to talk a little bit about texture, because here, as you remember, we had the cardboard and the foam, and they meet. But somehow this line is very obvious right now. So I hope when I paint this a little bit more, I can make it a little bit less obvious. There's no point to try to fill this up and then paint it again, because it's just going to be a third texture and just going to make this more of a mess. So I'm just going to leave it like this to simulate that there's different types of asphalt right there. This line was also here in the concrete, but I could easily fill this up with some wood filler and then spray this again. And as you see, you can't see it. As you don't see it. So that is more or less this. The bricks came out very nice. I mean, the color is popping too much, but we'll paint that a little bit more, and then that will be fine. The next step is to paint and weather all the different surfaces. So I start here with the concrete with a thin mix of gray, Tamiya XF75 to be precise. This really gives some age to the concrete. It makes it a bit more grimy and a bit more used. I also added a little bit of a burnt umber, as you see, just to give some dirtiness towards the sides of the roads where the soil will be, and also towards the sidewalk where the dirt would also collect. Then I also applied the same wash to the foundations where the structures will sit on top. You won't really see this, but I just wanted to get all the bases covered and do the edges, so that if you do see it, then at least it has a little bit of a wash and the shine is off of it. Next up are the sidewalks. I used the same color, but I thinned it out even more, and I tried to apply some details to different slabs of concrete just to make it a little bit more random and a little bit less homogeneous, and to break that staticness a bit, to give it some character. Then we got the cobblestones. I started out with a wash of this ash gray, and that really dulled it down a little bit, but I thought the color was a bit off, just still a bit too bright. So what I did then is I took a burnt umber again, and I just dry brushed it over most of the surface. So I really dulled it down a lot and gave a bit more accents to this field of cobblestones. And then last but not least is the asphalt. I was actually quite happy with the color itself. It was a bit dark, and I just wanted to dull it down a bit. As you see in the top, I tried various washes. I just wasn't that happy with the result. So I ended up just spraying a light gray chalk all over it and then fixing that in place with isopropanol. So then now we have all the separate components completed, and it's time to glue it all down. And this actually took quite a lot of time. This took me a day or two because there was a certain sequence to it. And they start with certain components and then stack up against that. So you have to wait for the individual drying times. So here's the in-between result of everything that's weathered more or less and painted and put together. We still need to do some final weathering. Before I do that, I want to paint on the lines. So here I have a center road marker. It's going to go on something like this. I'm just going to sponge it. You'll see that. And this is the stop marker where the cars have to stop. Now this needs to be a little bit accurate. I'm first measuring and drawing it out to make sure it's all in the middle of the road. And note that these are just the road lines, so we still need to add a lot of traffic signs for both the cars and the trains. That's all in a later stage. To tell some more story and to give some more visual interest, I draw cracks on the concrete in black and also tear lines in the asphalt in the darker sections. This gives some mixed results, and this might not be for everyone. I find in the concrete it really looks realistic and it pops, and in the asphalt it's okay. It's just that extra layer of depth and interest. And the same with the oil stains. I model the 50s, the transition era, and the cars were definitely not as oil tight as they were back then. So you want to have plenty of oil drips. So where to put them? Well, oil drips from the front and perhaps from the back as well. So you put the drips where the car would normally park, so somewhere around here and around here. Car wouldn't park like that, so there's no need to put any oil drips right there. They also stop at the stop sign, so put them there. And oil drips that are hanging on your car also come off when you go over a bump. So this is a bumpy section, so I added a few drips here, and in the other direction a few drips right there. Yes, there's a whole science behind this. So where to place the tear marks? Well, as you see, I did them a little bit randomly, but I added a few more here at the traffic light because this is where cars would stop, and concrete I guess would easily break, which you see in real life as well. And most of them are here at the edges. And the asphalt I did everywhere where there would be some tension or some change in surface, like here, the cracks on the side, and here. I did them down below at the edge quite a little bit, and here, and where the two sections meet. So I'll start with the weathering, and I'm going to use these chalk pastels for that. So with the chalks, you see I start with a very light gray for the different road marks. You can easily overdo it, so just start gently. And I found the light gray a bit too light, so I went one shade darker. And I found that on the cobblestones and the asphalt, I needed to go another shade darker, but only there. So where to place it? I place it on the runners or the tires, where the tires go. So try to get that distance more or less accurate. And then also check where the cars would go. So this is a crossing, so cars would take the crossing. So you want to have all those different directions in there, and just to get a real good effect. Now I did some gray on all the sidewalks just to give it a little bit more tonnage and a little bit more variation. And I added some rust color in the outer bends of the track work, and a little bit here and there at the turnout as well. So I think that should be done. I don't want to touch it too much. Like I said, you can easily overdo it, and some people might think it's already overdone, but I like it like this. It tells a story, and it gives something, some visual interest and something to look at. So here's the final result of the street. Everything is weathered, painted. Some conclusions. First conclusion or remark is that there's way more detail. Let me move this one. And way more thinking than that meets the eye than you have to do to plan even a simple crossing just like this. I'm not a civil engineer or anything like that, so you're gonna find out about a lot of little details and things you gotta think about. What also didn't help is that I have 1, 2, 3, basically 4, 5, and then in the alleys 6 different types of surfaces. So that means I had to do everything times 6, and that's also why everything took so long. And I wanted to paint everything off-site, which I think was a good decision, because you see the lines and They are really defined, so that's a good decision to paint it off-site. But that does mean that it takes a lot of time to do. You gotta make everything separate, gotta paint it, and then you gotta bring it back, and then you gotta glue it. So that's also why it took long. So some conclusions regarding materials and paints and what I like and what I don't like. The concrete, the color, and this road came out super nice. I'm really happy with that. It's really tight here. Same with the concrete here, and just this pack to get it in the turnout. It's very nice. I still need to install the switch here, the manual throw that I made in a separate video, but it works. It's tight and it looks really super good. Looks really nice. Same for the cobblestones. It looks nice. I feel it might be a little bit on the high side, so I still need to connect the track and see how it runs. Anyways, if it runs too difficult, then I'm just going to take it off and remove the filler that I have underneath. The asphalt section, I like the color how it in the end turned out. It was a lot of work and a lot of experimenting to get it like this, but this foam stuff, poof, it's also difficult to weather. It's just different material to work with, and when you scribe on the lines here, you really push into it, and then all the pens like that, and it's a bit of a different material to work with. It's underneath everything. It's also underneath the foundation here and the foundation there, and this whole black asphalt section is the foam. The foam is great to butt up against the rail or against this track filler right here, maybe even against the track filler here. As a track filler here for the turnout, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to use that. I'm going to use these kits where available, because that just looks great and it's super easy to do. This took almost no time. Most of the time went into these special joints and gluing all that over here as well, gluing that, getting the road curvature correct, and just figuring out again how many, where to put everything and how many pieces are there. There's so many layers. It was actually quite complex. And then the final step of adding the stripes, that's quite easy, I found, and the weathering took some time, but that wasn't the most work, to be honest. So the next step is to add way more detail. We still need to add the road signs, both the stop signs and the railroad crossing signs. I need to take these details off and add different types of details. Still need to detail the buildings, still need to do the soil. Oh, so much not in this video. And if you want to see that, click the video on the screen right now. Thank you all for watching. That's it for today. Bye bye.